5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Drop that.
Welcome to the Test Guild Automation Podcast. We're all getting together to learn more about software testing and automation with your host, Joe Colantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of the Test Guild Automation Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Peter Tesler, founder at Smashtest, all about Smashtest, which is a language for rapidly describing and deploying test cases. So listen up and discover a way to greatly speed up your automated testing. The Test Guild Automation Podcast is sponsored by the fantastic folks at Sauce Labs. Their cloud-based test platform helps ensure your favorite mobile apps and websites work flawlessly on every browser, operating system, and device. Get a free trial. Visit testguild.com/Sauce Labs and click on the exclusive sponsor section to try it for free for 14 days. Check it out. Hey, Peter. Welcome to the Guild.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Great. I'm so glad you agreed to be interviewed. Someone that I was speaking to the other day, I posted something, I think, on Selenite, and they said, oh, do you know about Smashtest? So I've never heard of it. So I'm really excited to learn more about it. But before we get into it, Peter, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I've been a software engineer for pretty much all of my life, I'd say. I've been a tester for a good part of it. Did some work in Microsoft, did some work at Disney. I'm an serial entrepreneur at heart, so I've started numerous startups, small scale, just seed funding. Learned a lot from those experiences. And now Smashtest is the thing I'm working on.
Very cool. So, Peter, what other startups were they? Were they all testing focused type startups?
No, actually, I had startups and pretty much everything. We had a website for debating, for logically organizing debates. There was a dating site that I built many years back. What else did I work on? Yeah, those were the two big ones. I did some AI stuff early as well, but that never took off. Now Smashtest. And then under Smashtest, we've tried a number of products. And the language that you alluded to, that's the latest thing that we've been working on.
Cool. So it sounds like you're always looking for opportunities. Why start up a business then in the testing arena?
Because that's the thing I'm passionate about. I like breaking stuff. I guess as a kid, I know it's a bit of a cliche nowadays, but as a kid, I was always the one who would knock down the tower blocks after building it, and so that's the thing I like. I like solving puzzles. I like figuring out how to compromise a system. And so I decided, since that's the thing I've been working on professionally for such a long time, I said, you know what, might be a great opportunity for a startup, especially with just how much effort and how much capital companies are putting into testing nowadays.
Big time. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are rushing into the space to throw cash around, especially if you said Smashtest was AI and machine learning enabled. You'd probably get funded right away. So, Peter, I thought Smashtest was the language. So it sounds like Smashtest is the company, and then one of the products is the language. Can you explain that?
Yeah, Smashtest is the language. So the organization is called Smashtest, but so is the language, right? Right now, it's an open source project. So we have a number of contributors, myself being full time, and that's where it's going right now.
You did mention you worked for Microsoft and Disney. Did you learn anything from your experience there that helped you start this company, especially in the testing phase?
Dealing with people, I guess, working with large teams, working cross-team, testing something that's currently in development, right? Testing something that changes very rapidly. That's the big one. A lot of things that companies work on are always changing around, and you may think you're testing it one way, but they change it up on you, and you have to switch course and course correct.
So absolutely, it sounds like speed is essential for testing, and especially if things are changing around. So is that one of the reasons why you created Smashtest?
Yep, absolutely. Speed is the number one factor because, in my experience at least, you build a test, stuff changes, and you can't blame stuff for changing, right? Especially in the software arena. Software is meant to change really, really quickly, especially while it's being developed. So the thing with tests is that you want to be able to write them as quickly and effortlessly as possible. You need to be able to build them, update them, maintain them, and tear them down inevitably with as little effort as possible. And that's been a problem, especially in the field of automation, test automation, because it takes a while to build a test with today's tools.
So Smashtest, we alluded to it that it's a language. Is it really a language, or does it use like JavaScript and you're using some sort of like keyword driven approach to create your test script?
Yeah, it's a language. It's a tool. It's everything, right? So that's the name I use pretty much everything to encompass this whole effort. It is a language. It comes with a interpreter, right? So when you download Smashtest off of NPM, it's an interpreter written on top of Node.js. In theory, you could extend it to any programming language. So everybody has their favorite ones. There'll be a version for that. Right now, everything is Node.js. Basically, you type out a test in plain English, and each of the phrases you type out map to some code that either you implement or is pre-implemented. The code itself is structured as a tree, which is the selling point of Smashtest. It is what differentiates itself from the rest of the pack. Whenever you think as a tester, right, you're thinking in terms of permutations. Smashtest allows you to express a test as the permutations that come out of each point in your test, as opposed to a linear set of instructions that traditional tests follow.
So is this different than Cucumber or BDD? Is it that type of syntax, or even Gauge has some sort of like their own version of a syntax that then is implemented in the background in code?
Yeah, no, in terms of syntax, you're right on the money. It strives to be as close to human readable as possible. So written in English or whatever language you choose to write it in. It comes with a bunch of built-in steps. So before that, I should probably talk about the packages it comes with. Right now, it comes with 2 packages. By that, I mean pre-installed functionality. It can test web UI with Selenium WebDriver, and it could test HTTP APIs. So right now, it does those two things. At any time, anybody can come and write their own package and use that. So you could test whatever, right? You could test mobile apps if you want. Anything that runs in Node.js, that can be used to use within Smashtest. The major thing that separates Smashtest from a typical TDD or BDD framework is the fact that you write tests as a tree. What I mean by that is, whenever you're building out a test, right, you always think of the permutations that emanate from any given point. So as an example, right, let's say you're a web developer and you're testing a web page. Suppose there is a text box on a web page, right? People say that testers try to think like the user, try to emulate the user, which is true to a certain extent. But at the same time, the tester thinks breadth first, right? Whereas the user thinks depth first. So going to that web page example, right? You have a text box, let's say for a username. A user comes in, types in their username, bye-bye, doesn't think about that text box anymore. And they move on to further steps, password, enter, whatever it is, right? Logged in. A tester, when they see a text box, they think of all the different permutations that can emanate from there. So I could put in a valid username, I could put an invalid username, I could put in an empty string, I could put in something that's too long, I could put in something that has very long UTF-8 characters, you name it. And you tend to think of all that stuff at once, right? So when I was building Smashtest, I was saying, let's build a language where what goes on in your head maps to what goes into your editor, right? So when you're looking at that text box and you're thinking of all the permutations, all those permutations go down underneath in one place, right? And all the permutations that can, let's say, emanate from you typing in a wrong password, that goes underneath the wrong username, that goes underneath the wrong username leaf in the tree. So it's hard to explain verbally. It's much better to show people, and it's easier to explain it that way. But the whole gist of it is that how you think is how you document, type out, automate a test. And that speeds things up much.
So why would it speed it up? Is it because you already have the setup and then you're just doing the different permutations under that, so it's less that you have to write?
Yep. So that's one of the things, definitely. When you're writing a traditional test, right, you get to that text box, you choose a permutation, and then you continue on your linear test. All right, here's a username, here's a password, then you might hit enter, and then you think of a bunch of steps, right? Then you have to go back to the very beginning, and you have to go all the way down again. Okay, we're back at the username box. Let's see, which permutation did I think of? Which ones did I not think of? Which ones did I cover yet? Which ones that I didn't cover yet? And then go down the list of steps. With Smashtest, when you're at the text box, you type out all the permutations at once. And then from that point forward, you don't have to return to that place ever again. You just choose a permutation you already jotted down, and from that point, you come up with more permutations, like a branching tree. So there's less to type out. There's less unnatural thinking. You don't have to go back to square one and start, thinking of what you did before. You type out in the same manner, in the same order that you think in.
Yeah, so it seems like it's more tester-centric, where
absolutely,
okay, it maps to way someone, like a lot of knocks on automation is it only validates one thing, or it doesn't validate 5 other or 10 other things you want to know. So it sounds like this is something that can help you get that in a style that's easy to read and in a flow that a tester would be very familiar with.
Absolutely. And we cut back on some of the stuff we found to be excess in automation. Like nowadays, everybody names their test, right? You have to type in the test name. But, what's in a name, right? Do you get much value out of naming your tests? Turns out most tests, and we were talking about, various kinds of experiences you learn as a tester. What most names of tests tend to be very unhelpful. They're like card test number 15 or something, right? They don't really convey much information. And a lot of tests are very close to other tests in terms of steps. They only vary in one thing. Let's say maybe you had a checkbox checked in one, you don't have it checked in the other. So really, the best way to describe a test is with the steps themselves. And there's no real naming a test only slows you down, right? Is what I'm getting at. So in Smashtest, you wouldn't even name your test, although you can if you want to. You just type out your steps and type out how functionality branches from each point in time.
Is there a way to annotate it though? Because I'm just thinking of regulations, like when you're working in like healthcare. A lot of times they're like, "Oh, you have a patient criteria here. Show me the test that maps to that requirement." Are you able to do any sort of annotation on the test? So you could do mapping to a requirement if you had to?
Yeah, there's quite a few ways of going around that. You could put in what is called a text step with the name of the annotation you want to put in. You could put in a group identifier with a hashtag, and there's always the good old fashioned comment. You could put that in, and then you just do a search and you find the line with the comment with the ID of whatever regulation or whatever requirement you're trying to find.
Is there any concepts of a code reuse or a step reuse so that you're not constantly saying the same thing over and over again?
Yep, absolutely. So we have a concept of functions here. And you do something very often. You make a function refactor. You have, let's say, a function called login, and you have all the steps to log in. And then anywhere in your test, you just say log in and it calls that function. And then the report that it spews out at the end, it'll contain, you can uncollapse the login part and you see all the steps that were generated from there that fall under login, and help troubleshoot that way if something goes awry. Another great thing is that within functions, you can branch as well. So let's say there's two different ways of doing something, right? Let's say when you log in, you can either hit enter or you can click a login button, right? So within your login function, you can have one branch that clicks the button, and the other branch that hits enter. And then whenever you use login anywhere in your tests, it'll automatically create two tests. It'll branch, it'll double, and it'll do login the one way, and then another test, it'll do login the other way. And if there's a problem with one, then usually it's a problem with one, right? It'll find that. So Smashtest is a great way to express many different permutations in as little typing as possible, as little coding as possible.
Nice. So besides this type of functionality, you have other things like a live report. What is a live report?
Yeah, so while your tests are running, you open up your report and you see in real time which step is currently running. By default, we do parallels. So you run your tests, they usually run in parallel. You see which tests are running. You can click on a step. You could see which steps have completed, which ones have not completed yet, which ones passed, which ones didn't. Click on a step, immediately see the screenshot before, the screenshot after of that step. And it's a good way to monitor, especially when you're running your tests as headless. You can't see the browsers, which might be a good thing. They don't get in your way, but at the same time, you're wondering, well, did something freeze? How many of my tests are left? Which ones failed? I want to get a little head start on my debugging. Which ones failed already? Just open a report and see that.
People that do have long-running test suites within their CI systems, sometimes it takes an hour or two. So it sounds like this is cool because if something's failing, someone can start triaging before the whole test suite is done.
Absolutely.
What other things or benefits do you get as in the reporting? Are there screenshots or good error messages that let you know where exactly the error may have occurred?
Yep. So you get error messages, you get screenshots, pretty much everything you said. It's a pretty nice looking report, at least in my opinion. It's a dark background, so at least it's easy on your eyes, like your editor probably is. One of my favorite features of the report is that it consolidates errors that are similar. So let's say you have a particular test, right? And it does something in Chrome, and then you have another test that does the same thing in Firefox, right? Let's say that test fails in each of those browsers. So it'll consolidate all those failures into one error. And so you can open up that failing test and see, oh, look, it failed in every browser. So I guess the browser is not the culprit. If it only fails in one browser, then you say, oh, look, it only failed in Firefox, but it passed in every other browser. So it must be a problem with Firefox specifically. And that's great when troubleshooting because it'll easily tell you, because you could easily permute on every step, you can isolate problems much quicker that way. But just by seeing where it fails everywhere versus where it fails at a particular point.
Cool, Peter. So can you give a quick example?
Let's see. I think I like the browser example, right? But it doesn't have to just be browsers. Going back to the login example, right? Suppose you have a test that tests multiple users. So like on the homepage, we have an example. The username is Joe, Bob, and Mary, right? So we test that you log in as Joe or Bob or Mary. In each of those cases, you verify success, right? And verify success is, let's say, a function of verify certain things on the page at the end. So you run your test. It fails when you're Joe. It fails when you're Bob. It fails when you're Mary. In the report, it consolidates all those failures together. And you look at it and you say, looks like it's not a problem that's specific to a particular username. It's a problem that lies elsewhere because the test failed for both Joe, Bob, and Mary. Just like with the browsers, right? Tests can fail in all the browsers you try, or it could fail in a specific one. When it's a specific one, you know that you have to dive into that. Like the culprit, the cause of the bug is probably there. So with usernames, if it only fails under Bob, then that means there's something up with Bob, right? Maybe Bob is a specific type of user, and there's a bug related to that specific type of user. The good thing that what the report does is it consolidates in a way that's really easy to read. So you don't have to look for, hey, what are all the other similar tests that failed? They're all in one place.
I believe it also helps you run tests in parallel. That's another thing teams struggle with. Just tell us a little bit more about running in parallel. Are there any benefits out of the box that you get with it?
Yeah, it runs everything in parallel by default. I found that testers, or at least automation testers, find parallelism to be challenging. Both setting it up and then actually running it in a way that where each of the parallel instances doesn't interfere with each other, right? So I'm testing an airline booking website, right? And each of my tests log in with the same username, and they start doing stuff. And one puts a flight into the cart, the other one takes a flight out of the cart, and they're all messing with each other because they're all messing with the same piece of state. Right? So Smashtest comes with a solution to that, which is a exclamation point operator. And you put that in, and it tells you everything underneath, all the branches underneath this line. Don't run them in parallel. Run them sequentially. You can run other branches in parallel to them, but the ones that I marked, run them all separately because they interfere with each other. But absent that operator, it runs everything in parallel by default. You don't have to think about it, and that's great because with Smashtest, again, it's so easy to create permutations. You just add a line. You can easily double the amount of cases you've got covered. You could generate a lot of different cases really, really quickly. And like you said, you don't want to be sitting around for hours and hours and hours waiting for that suite to finish. So parallelism by default is the best situation, in my opinion.
Very cool. So obviously it also integrates with CI/CD. Is this because it works on a command line? Like Maven, you can pass the commands of how you want it to run and things like that?
Yep, and it all comes out of the box. So there's no whenever you're building a suite from scratch, you take Maven, you have to take all these other tools, you have to, smash them together and hook them up, make sure they all work. Smashtest, you just create a smash file, text file, put your test in, you run Smashtest, file name, hit enter, and you're good to go. With the stuff. So if it's a web test with Selenium pre-install, obviously, but that's usually fast.
So, how long has this been out for?
Oh, it's been out for a whopping 2 months now.
Okay.
We had some good press initially. Some Reddit liked us, which I don't know how often Reddit likes something, but Reddit liked us.
Very rare.
Knock on wood.
Yep.
So we had some good press there. A couple of other blogs picked us up. Some news organizations picked us up. So we got some good traffic there. Got to build the community a little bit. Got some really good people there. I think in the first few days, somebody translated our documentation to Chinese. Somebody wrote a VS Code extension. That was a big one. Somebody wrote a VS Code extension for Smashtest because we already had an extension for Atom, but obviously everybody's got their own favorite editor. Everybody's so passionate about their favorite, and VS Code is pretty popular nowadays, so we got that going thanks to the community. A lot of bug fixes. It's been pretty stable as of late, so it's still in beta officially, but that might be coming off sometime soon.
I think this is something you need to try because it seems very unique to anything I've heard before. So any feedback on your approach so far, on the direction you've taken this?
I have to think about it because everybody in the internet is opinionated. It's been overwhelmingly positive. Usually the feedback is, oh, hey, does it work with, this CI provider? Does it work with this cloud service? Does it make French toast? It's like, does it do my thing? We had some people are passionate about languages. So it's in Node.js, but then they ask about, what about Python? What about this? What about that? Easily portable. It's all coming up. What else did they say? Stuff like Appium is coming. It's very easy to write a package for Smashtest and have it work with your favorite X, Y, and Z. What else does it do? It does a lot of it does mocking really well. It does things like you could throttle network. You could test under different network conditions just by typing in, "Hey, the internet's down," and there's a line. That's not the actual line, but when the internet's down, then do this, do that. I think what's coming up next is I'm going to release some training for Smashtest, because a lot of the questions, a lot of the feedback is stuff that's in the documentation. But I think some people prefer like an audio or like visual version of it. So I think that's what's on my radar right now. That's usually the feedback.
Okay, Peter, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give someone to help them with their automated testing efforts, or even getting started with Smashtest? And let us know the best way to find or contact you.
I would say test automation is a tool, right? So it's a tool to help you test, and testing is all about trying to figure out what the requirements and user expectations are, and making sure a system follows or conforms to those expectations. So part of what makes testing an art, in my opinion, is that you sit there and you try to figure out what all the different permutations are. How can you hack this particular system? So I would say if you're going into test automation, don't forget the art of testing, right? The art of trying to understand how a system works on the inside, figuring out what the risk points are, where components are being held together with, gum and like sticky tape, and concentrate your efforts on those points. And yeah, that's what I would say in terms of testing. Smashtest, I would say, check out the site smashtest.io, and there's a nice tutorial on there. I'll be coming out with some YouTube videos shortly. That should be some good place to start. And there's some really good blogs that are out there, some really good tutorials that some other folks that have been playing around with Smashtest have put forward. So Google that. Smashtest.io is a good place to start. Or you can email me directly at peter@smashtest.io, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Peter, for your Smashtest automation awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testguild.com/A like automation, A272. And while you're there, make sure to click on that sign up for a free trial link under the exclusive sponsors section to learn all about Sauce Labs' awesome products and services. So that's it for this episode of the Test Guild Automation Podcast. I'm Joe, and my mission is to help you succeed with creating automation awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Guild Automation Podcast. Head on over to testguild.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and online testing conferences. Make sure to subscribe to join the guild and continue your testing journey. This has been a Joe Calantonio production.